This is the story of my grandparents, George and Marion Hullfish, who I never knew, and their 5 children, Ken, Margaret, Donald, Shirley, and my mother, Marion. This is Asher and Laura Kitchen, my great-grandparents. They had 6 children, including Marion, my grandmother. Here's Marion before she married. Joseph Hullfish had 10 children, including 2 from a second marriage, Irving and George, my grandfather.
She looks quite stately.
Yeah, and he looks quite the gentleman. I don't know what he did for a living. Do you have any idea?
No. And when did they die?
She died in 32, he in 34, because they certainly look...
Yeah, they look pretty healthy, but then a lot of people look healthy and then they're gone the next day. What in the world kind of an outfit is it? Look at that.
Quite a sophisticated
Yeah, well,
outfit.
look at that thing down. It looks like her slip's hanging out or something. She doesn't look like she's got 5 kids yet.
No. Because I was thinking, okay, she had 5 kids. I don't know how old she was when she started.
She never had a married life without kids.
Yeah, I'm thinking that she had
Enough to kill her.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. In fact,
I mean, if you think about it,
I saw
after another.
I saw an obituary in the paper one time that this woman had 8 or 10 kids and wondered what she died of. I said she died of her husband. God. We didn't even have electric. I don't know how she did the wash.
You probably have to go shopping all the time.
I don't know how. Well, you got your groceries. You just called. You called and they delivered. And works.
From Works.
Yeah, that's about the only advantage I can think of.
Right.
And
there was no prepared food. Everybody was cooking all the time.
We didn't even have a bathroom in the house.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Those first years.
Yeah. 1935.
No.
38.
Yeah, she died in 35, I think.
No, 35. So that would be 18 years. 17 years married.
Yeah.
And had 5 kids.
Then she would have had 6.
Right.
If she hadn't lost one.
Right. So she was a busy, busy lady.
Yep.
Throughout those years. Because the kids were already...
Well, she looked like she was happy when she was single. She looked happier than her friends. They were sort of a drab group.
Dour. Okay, that's right. He looked like a pretty rough guy, huh?
I think he was. He had about 10 kids.
Wow. And was he... Where was their homestead?
Well, they lived up the road where Uncle Irving's house was. I think that's where that's taken. And
when I look at him, I sure see Uncle Irving, but I don't...
Oh, yeah.
Huh?
Well, sure, why wouldn't you? It's his dad.
Oh, okay. I guess that would explain it. I still lose track of the cast of characters.
Didn't he have 2 wives? Like, one wife died, and then he had sort of a second family with the younger wife? Is that how it goes?
Just Daddy and Uncle Irving were the other 2. The rest were half-brothers.
We're way older.
But we never thought of them as half-brothers. Nobody ever said, well, now we're just half-brothers.
Right.
Yeah.
So they were out there on Amwell Road?
Where Uncle Irving's house was an old farmhouse. Now, I don't have a picture of the front of it, but I have a picture taken looking from it down the road, and there's Uncle Harry's place. That's why I know that's the farmhouse that burned.
So what did he do for a living?
Yeah, Marion wrote this.
What did he do for a living? Was it farming or?
Granddad?
Yeah.
I think he was probably a carpenter because his son Rizzo was a carpenter, and Rizzo's son Rizzo was a carpenter. Do you remember Ianella?
From out at, yeah, sure.
Well, she raised Daddy and Uncle Irving, because their mother died just a few months after Uncle Irving was born.
Uh-huh.
So she ended up raising these two boys, and then
I see, yeah.
and then ended up raising Shirley too.
There's Mabel. So.
This used to have a fence row right there. It had a lilac bush and one of those orange, we used to call them Japanese roses. And that's when...
I'm sure we have some good pictures of that, I bet, somewhere.
But there was a whole row, and Donald wandered by when he was 18 months old, wandered through and got hit with a car.
No kidding.
Fractured his skull, broke his arm.
No kidding.
Oh my God.
And he was in the hospital till he got out.
Jeez.
And that was quite something. I thought we were a bad luck family. When we, no, really. When we lived down there, that porch was different.
Right.
Ken had blood poisoning, erysipelas they called it.
Yeah.
His leg was like this. It looked like one big water blister.
Oh my God.
And he was in that far bedroom upstairs with that, and the doctor had to come and lance it.
Oh my God.
Of course, I didn't have to watch it, but I remember them doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then then later on, he was playing something and broke his arm.
Yeah.
And well, I think he got that from a nail over at. I think he had a rusty nail that got him over at the lumberyard. I had my appendix out about when I was 11 or 12.
Yeah.
And I thought we were a bad luck family. And then I got bigger and had some kids and realized that anybody that had kids had a bad luck family.
Right.
Sal fell out of the back of the car with me.
Oh my God.
In the gutter. And Kate broke her collarbone falling off the sofa climbing over it.
Yeah, Pablo broke his collarbone, as a matter of fact.
Right.
Some kid fell on top of him.
And Kevin got lost up on the hill, and I was about ready to call police. He fell asleep down in the raspberry patch of the neighbors. And I just saw Kate going over the horizon with her blue sweater following one of the dogs.
Yeah.
And she'd have been gone who knows where if she'd ever gotten over that hill. I wouldn't have seen her.
Right. Right.
But we were a bad luck family.
So this was an operating factory when you were a girl?
Oh, yeah.
So this was not...
It was a tomato factory.
Yeah, and so the tomatoes were all locally grown.
Yeah, they came down from the hill. The conifers in the hills. Well, there were two conifers that brought them in.
Yeah.
And Leon Hill.
Yeah.
And there could have been more, but I just remember them. And they loaded them up on that back platform. And then they dumped them into the boiler to take the... You got to do that to get the skins off.
Yeah.
And then I just can't remember the other operation.
So they had some kind of a canning operation then?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the whole thing.
Yeah.
So what would they do during the off season when there weren't...
Darn if I know. If there wasn't nothing going on, we didn't go over to watch it.
Right. Oh, so you as a little girl would go over and watch the action.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And they allow you to go in.
Oh, and Marion would be there, so you would go together.
No, I don't think we wanted to. I probably didn't want her to go. She's too small. Grow, he was a great gardener.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, my gosh. Well, he had, when we lived down there.
I wonder how he had the energy with 5 kids to do a garden besides.
Well, look at Uncle Irving and Uncle Harry both. That's what people did. They had gardens.
True. Well, he had almost a little farm down there, Uncle Irving.
Right.
I mean, he had a gigantic...
That yellow house wasn't there, and my dad had a big garden over in that lot.
Is that right?
And then the little one out back, and with flowers, because he loved flowers.
Oh, I had no idea about all that.
Yep, and every window in Ken's bedroom had a shelf with the slips growing, you know, that he was trying to...
growing?
Well, he'd cut something off and start a new plant.
Yeah.
So he had them all lined up on Ken's window. This here, I think, is where the mail would be thrown out on that thing. And then Henry Esch,
yeah, on that little platform there.
Henry Esch used to have a thing, and the post office is where the library is now.
Oh, right.
And he'd wheel that over to the post office.
Yeah.
And he had trouble walking, so he'd go limping over to the post office with the mail. And then I'd go up and wait for the last mail, because at 6 o'clock would be the last mail.
Yeah.
And there used to be iron rails there by Gebhardt's, you know, the inn.
Yeah.
And we'd do a spin on it, you know, we'd grab it like this and spin.
Yeah.
And fool around till the mail came in, and then we'd cart it home. As if we get a lot of mail, you know.
Right.
Oh, God. Ben was in a separate bedroom, and my dad slept, because he worked nights, he slept out there by himself in another bedroom.
Yeah. Not much fun.
No, I think it was, it was during the Depression. And,
right.
So then he had another job. He was the janitor in the athletic club over the drugstore.
Wow.
Upstairs there. That's where I got my first playing cards, because they used to play cards when it wasn't baseball season.
Oh. Do you remember going up to this field, or were you too little?
Oh, yeah.
No. You went up?
Yeah.
And watched ball games?
Yep. Well, I don't know if I watched them. I wandered around, and there was a color fellow that used to sell peanuts, and there was a big stand, probably as big as this room, where people could sit.
Oh, grandstand.
Yeah, I can't think of those little details.
Yeah.
About not quite 15 maybe when my dad died, and that's when I moved.
Okay, so no, that makes quite a bit of difference. I mean, you have much more, memory of life at home with two parents.
No, I don't.
No kidding.
No, I
Block it out.
I can't hardly remember them.
No kidding.
Wow.
When we first moved in here, this thing ran through my head. Why, I don't know. I seem to remember my dad saying, "You ought to go out and live in the woods. You can't get along with anybody." And that thing went through my head.
Yeah.
Aunt Kate.
Right.
In fact, I think I took off for her place whenever things were getting a little too hot for me at home.
Right.
I'd run over to her house. And
Yeah.
I think I became a grandchild almost to her. She used to say she thought I came in for the cookies, because she had ginger snaps out in the kitchen. But now I knew I was going to find sanctuary if I went over there.
Okay, right.
And I'm sure they felt pretty good when I got out of there.
Well, but your mother was sick for quite a while, wasn't she?
We have a picture of her at Aunt Jane's with her and my dad and Marion and I think. And you can see that she has a lump on her neck then.
Yeah. Marion Hullfish died of cancer in 1935 at the age of 43. Her daughter Marion was 8 at the time, and Margaret was 11. That must have been quite an adjustment, because it sounds
it was.
It sounds like you guys had a pretty free reign there, and
well, we did. I mean, there was nobody.
Especially after your mother died, you must have been running wild there.
Right.
Who was older than you?
Ken. I was number 2.
Oh, so you two, a responsibility must have fallen on your shoulders.
Well, Ken used to make the cocoa on Sunday morning. We used to have cocoa and crumb buns.
Is that right?
Yeah. I remember getting what we called supper, maybe. Probably be a lettuce sandwich.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe we had a bigger meal at noon. Maybe Daddy was still home at noon, and when we came home from school, we had our meal then.
3 years, and we just did whatever we wanted. And we just lived wild, really, on the streets here.
Who made dinner and stuff? Your father?
Well, Margaret and I, no, my father went to work, and Margaret was in charge, and we'd get to fighting, and it was awful. And she'd get dinner on the table, and then every night when it was time to do dishes, she'd have to go to the bathroom, and she'd leave, and just stuff like that. And, but back in those days, you know, we didn't have much for dinner. We actually had lettuce sandwiches and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There wasn't, and we only had meat once a week, because that was during bad times.
Yeah.
I used to be sure he got up in time to catch the 10:10 train. Now, he didn't take a 10:10 train to go to the Hopewell Tower, so he must have had a tower down the line.
Yeah.
Maybe, I think maybe it's Skillman.
4 years after the death of their mother, their father George died of a stroke while working at night on the railroad. Marion was 11 and Margaret was 14. Ken and Shirley went to Uncle Irv and Aunt Ella's just outside of town. Margaret went just down the street to Aunt Emma's, and Donald, the youngest, went to North Jersey with Aunt Ethel.
No, it was because my mother was deathly sick the year before she died. And so Aunt Jane said, I'm going to take Marion for the summer. So this was what was bad for me. I knew she took me for the summer. And she took me because she was getting old and she needed somebody to do the and there was no washing machine. Everything was done sheets by hand. No washing machine, no wringer. I wrang all these things out. And there was no refrigerator. So I had to take from the ice box. You had to empty the water so many times a day. And she needed somebody, you know, to do this.
Yeah.
And every Saturday the porch had to be scrubbed. And the bathrooms had to be cleaned and all this stuff. But what happened was the night that they had the meeting, we had that pipeless heater, you know?
Yeah.
And we were upstairs, and Margaret and I, we had no idea what was going to happen to us. Donald and Shirley were already gone, I don't know where Ken was. And we were listening to what was going to happen to us. And the first one to speak up was Aunt Jane.
She was there.
Oh yeah, the brothers and sisters were all there.
Yeah.
And Aunt Jane says, I'll take Marion. Well, because she already knew what she had with me. She had somebody to do all the work. So then they said that so Aunt Ethel said, well, I'll take Donald. And then Aunt Uncle Irvin, and then nobody wanted Margaret. And this was the worst. Yeah. It was terrible. I'll never forget it. This Aunt Emma says, well, I suppose we could take her. And that's awful when you're laying up there wondering what's going to happen to you, you know. I was bawling my head off because I didn't want to go to murder. And they just come in a car and took me.
No kidding.
Took me right out of that front yard with all the kids and put me in a car and took me. I didn't have a chance to do a thing. They just picked me up and took me down to that awful place. 10.
Yeah.
So you ended up out here. I mean, well, you headed up to North Jersey. So you didn't get back here until you were like 12 years old or something.
Yeah, I'm going to give you the whole story. See.
Yeah.
That was 38.
Yeah.
And then Aunt Margaret went down to Aunt Emma's.
Right, across the street.
And they really lived in the dark ages. They got the bucket of water. But now they had a well here. They had a well drilled and they had water in the house.
Yeah.
But they're down there in Emma's, they carted it in with a bucket.
Yeah.
Not even a sink.
Yeah.
You worked out of a
wash bucket or something.
Yeah.
But they still had a great tennis court and croquet court and all that stuff.
Yes, they did. Yeah.
So I think their priorities were a little bit more oriented towards recreation.
He wasn't too good a plumber, so he was more of a handy carpenter, and he built chairs. He used to build the chairs they sat on.
Yeah, because I've seen pictures. It was quite an elaborate setup. It was like a sport. It's like a little country club or something,
out
you know?
he'd have a path and a lot of flowers, John.
Yeah.
And then he built the trellis.
And didn't they have even lights out there and people would come out and play at night or play quoits and stuff?
In the front yard.
Horseshoes?
They had the lights out for the croquet.
For the croquet?
Yeah.
Right.
And the quoits.
That's what I thought.
I bet you come down to, we used to play quoits there.
We used to have a picnic table here and they had a stone fireplace right about where that is.
Yeah.
And picnics, great on picnics. I've never cared much for picnics since because every time you had a picnic, you carried everything all the way out across the porch, down the yard, and then it all went back afterward.
Yeah.
And I'm not too great on too much work. Big garden along there. Remember him shooting. Used to have rats in the chicken house. You know, they were eating the food. I remember him shooting. The rats were lined up at the trough outside. Shot the whole bunch of them. I didn't really kill them. And there was lights on the quake ground. Lights on the quake ground too.
Yeah.
And this was my bedroom right there. And I could hear the quakes ringing as I was gone to bed.
Yeah.
East end of town against the west end.
Yeah.
And the well used to get ice on it, so you had to break it.
Oh, that could have been...
You know, drop the pail down on it till
you
got through.
Wow.
And you wondered, there was a barn here, a small barn.
Yeah.
And behind the barn was an outhouse. And around on this side was one that the people in the back part used. And the one in the back, the door wouldn't even shut all the way. It was about like this because of the sidewalk was crooked. So, well, I mean, who's going to surprise you? There wasn't anybody but us.
Right.
And I used the other one because a little more private. Okay. They had Sears catalogs out there. I can't remember whether they used toilet paper too, but I know when I first moved out here. Aren't you a pretty kitty? Yes, you are.
Who was Albert?
That was Ruth's husband, and he.
Oh, Ruth's husband. Okay, right. He was he's another guy.
And he became a comptroller up at Bethlehem Steel.
Ah.
He had a good job.
He's a big shot.
Yeah, he went to college somewhere. I can't remember where.
Oh.
To learn how to...
Where did they end up moving to?
Bethlehem.
Oh.
Yeah, we used to go.
And whatever happened to them?
They both died, like all the people have.
Yeah. But did you keep in touch with her at all?
Oh, yeah. And
they may have already been up in Bethlehem.
Here's something that I thought, Ruth had a lot to do with taking me to live there. And... she got married, I went in 38, 39, in 3 years, they got married. And I figured she may have taken me to sort of replace her when she got married.
Oh, I see.
These things, Harry says, I know what runs through people's heads.
Right.
Or think I do.
Yeah.
Well, sounds logical.
Yeah.
I mean,
because,
they probably would have really hated to see her leave.
Right.
There's Uncle Harry and Sport. No, he wasn't any stepfather. That was my father's half brother.
Right.
He used to paint with him.
Adopted father. Huh?
No, he wasn't adopted. No, he was just Uncle Harry.
Okay.
There was no parentage there at all.
Oh, really?
No. Feeling.
Oh, really?
I mean, they were very good to me.
Yeah.
But they weren't responsible for dressing me, and that all would be feeding me. And I think I gave them so much a month when I finally got making something.
Oh, I see.
$35 a month, I think I made.
Is that right?
Yeah, I wish I'd kept a tab from my pay thing.
Yeah, right.
No, nobody made big money.
Right.
They used to work at Rockwell's.
Is that right?
Yeah, and Aunt Ella, and they walked home on the railroad.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We had a picture of them just getting home from work one day.
Oh. This is a great picture.
Yeah, there's
a date on it?
it doesn't tell who we are.
1941.
Yeah, that's the year we graduated.
Oh, was that graduation?
Mr. Clark, the school bus driver, probably took it because we were
George Clark.
We were the seniors, and he probably took it because we were the seniors.
Oh, and that's Elsie Van Loo.
Yep. Look, they've all got dresses but me.
Yeah, what is that? I was trying to...
Well,
it looks like a skirt.
Yeah, but they had these things called culottes, but I don't know if
I think that's a skirt.
I don't know if I'd have been allowed to wear a culotte to school.
That looks like just a traditional skirt.
Yeah, I look like a tough one.
Yep.
Not quite as ladylike as the rest.
So basically you would take this bus every day and it would pick you up right in front of your house?
Well, Elsie tells me I always had to run to catch it. I was always late.
Really?
So they'd stop up the road for Ken, because if they'd gone up on the hill first and then picked us up on the way back,
oh, right.
they'd go past, and because I wouldn't be out there yet, and the next thing you know, I'd come tearing up the road. She says I was late all my life. Yeah. And I am. 9 times out of 10, I'm late for church.
Yeah.
And the way I'm going, I'll be late for my funeral, I figure. Well, you work like a horse. I mean, you had to keep the place looking like that.
Yeah.
I trimmed the hedge for him toward the end before I was married. Because it was all where it was, so I just had to trim it.
Right.
And all the way up the road, you know.
Right.
I mean, halfway to the railroad bridge.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a big yard.
I mean, anybody riding by on the railroad probably thought it was a...
Right.
What do you call it?
Country estate.
Yeah, something. Something.
Yeah, it is pretty amazing. Had to keep all that, the tennis court.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work to keep those things.
There was no money
to
do
amazing.
It. He did the whole thing with his hands and heart.
Yeah, that's amazing, really, when you think about it.
That's Aunt Ella and Ruth.
Yeah.
Oh, that's perfect.
Isn't that a great picture?
Oh, that is.
These pictures of Aunt Ella are quite something, in that hat and that big fur coat and everything.
Yeah, that was before she had to think about raising up another generation.
Yeah.
And there's one with her and a gentleman.
I've seen that. Yeah. And I think it's in that same coat and hat.
I don't know.
Yeah.
She looks pretty young there.
Yeah.
I never seen this one. Oh my gosh,
look at that. That is beautiful, and with a check blouse.
That shirt was
1943.
nice. See, I went down to
high school.
I went down to Aunt Emma's in 38.
That's too bad.
And that's one reason why she took me, because you would never stay in the house alone. I remember Margaret asking me to come out here, that they would come get me, and I couldn't come because she never stayed alone in the house at night.
Wow. So she really was.
Yeah, so she needed
She was
somebody.
really unbalanced.
Yeah, she was. She needed somebody to be in the house. I think one of the worst things was on my birthday, I couldn't stand vanilla ice cream. I was chocolate. I was a chocolate person back then. And every birthday, she would buy vanilla ice cream and make me eat it. It's God's honest truth.
Yeah, she was like...
She was sick.
Oh,
Yeah.
She was a sick woman.
Can you imagine? And that was my fault. And
She was a very stern woman, and
she never gave an inch.
She never knew a man.
No.
And never had a child.
No.
So
It was a bad situation, really.
It was dumb.
But I'm surprised that everybody along here just went on with it. I guess it was just a desperate situation.
There were 5 of us,
yeah,
and nobody knew what to do with us.
You
have to realize that.
You must realize that many people would at that time would have thought that she was well off, because a lot of this orphanage and all the other orphanages in the country were full of people, and some of them had at least one parent living.
Yeah.
Andy Montleone lived in that orphanage.
No kidding.
Edgar Dormer lived in that orphanage. Edgar Dormer. What is it? And
Andy Montleone lived
and his wife. They were all brought up in this orphanage down here. With
Andy Montleone until.
Andy Montleone.
Oh yeah, and he had one. He had his father living, but his father couldn't He had his sister, his brother, and Andy. They all went to this orphanage.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's where he.
Times were tough back then.
Yeah.
And you know what? The kids that were put in there, I can remember as a real little kid, the parents might live in Trenton and they'd come up on the bus and walk all over the orphanage to visit their kid that were down there and they brought up.
So nobody would cry for her. There were people worse off.
In town. In town.
Yeah, but you see,
she had a relative she lived with. She didn't live in an orphanage with nuns.
But you know what I did? I wanted to go to the Newark Orphanage. It was down on High Street. I got the address, and I knew how to get to the bus, the South Orange Avenue bus line, and the South Orange bus line would take me right to High Street, and I'd have a little bit of walk to get to that orphanage. Yeah. I packed my bag, and I said, I'm better off there than living the way I was living. And I got caught going down the steps. I can still see me going down the steps in the house, and she beat the daylights out of me.
How old were you?
Oh, how I was 10 or 11, 12.
Trying to get to the orphanage.
Oh, yeah, because I figured I'd have kids there. You know, I needed, and I can remember Uncle Lloyd, I was 13, I'll never forget, I was 13 years old, and they were all scared to death of her. And they all came to visit, you know, on a Sunday, and she would put this big dinner on with the silver and the damask and the, you know, and then they would all go in and I would do all the dishes, and you had 3 towels. One thing you had towel you had to use for the silver, one towel you used for the crystal, and one for the. Anyhow, Uncle Lloyd took me out in the porch, and he says, "Marion, you can't live like this. You've got to get out of here." 13 I am. I says, "Well, help me get out of here." Oh, he said, "I couldn't go against Aunt Jane. I couldn't do anything against Aunt Jane."
He didn't fear the devil himself. Only Aunt Jane did he fear.
Everybody feared
I'll tell you
her.
what, he was a tough man.
I know.
And this is us at Aunt Jane's. Ken and Marion and Donna and I. And that's Kenny Boy. Shirley's not in that.
Aunt Jane's?
No, she's
So what do you mean, you all went up to visit my mother or something?
Yeah, they would.
Oh, here it is.
Yeah, it has the ages on the back.
They would take us up. I think maybe Uncle Irving took us up. Let me see, Ken, I don't know whether it was Ken driving there. How old would he have been?
22.
Yeah,
So maybe
well, he drove us
when
up
she was
then.
old enough.
Yeah.
Marion's only 15 in this. My gosh, she looks older than 15.
Well, she got quite heavy. This is 1943. See, that was during the war.
Yeah.
But what was he driving? Maybe he hadn't gone.
Made his contribution eventually.
Well, your mother had a terrible time. See, when we living with Aunt Ethel, I mean, it might have been a little rough, but you was free as a bird.
Yeah.
And I went up to Clifton.
Yeah.
To live with her, and they had Myrtle and Elwood, and but there's 5 or 6 there living in a little 3-room flat.
Oh.
There was 4 of us sleeping in a little.
Oh, really?
It was just room enough for the bed. You kind of walked in there, and Milford, he left. He got married very soon after I got there.
Yeah.
So he was away.
Yeah.
And he married. But he was a rough as a cod.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. He hung down at the bar.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Ah.
But Chester and Elwood, they were a whole 2 different people.
Yeah.
In other words, Elwood was the rough cob, and Elwood and Chester, they were a little calmer, and they went to Sunday school. But Elwood never went to too many Sunday schools.
Is that right?
No. He was in the bar quite a lot.
Oh, I had no.
But he was a good-hearted.
Right.
For Aunt Jane was tough.
Yeah. That's the, yeah.
But I'll tell you one thing. Maybe she didn't like it.
Yeah.
But she learned how to act.
Yeah.
Respond to people's messages.
Yeah.
The finer things.
Yeah, she instilled some discipline.
Well, your mother knew what should be done.
Exactly.
A lot of people don't.
Right.
You not always answer a letter.
Right.
And
yeah.
When she done something, it was proper.
Correct.
And that's what you got from Aunt Jane.
Yeah. Yeah.
May not have got no loving care and tenderness.
Yeah.
But she did learn what was right and what was wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When their parents died, Donald went to North Jersey to live with Aunt Ethel. After several years there, his older brother Ken brought him to Uncle Irving's, where he was reunited with Shirley and Margaret. Marion continued with Aunt Jane in North Jersey. I mean, he was almost
but if
like
it hadn't have been
an older
for him, I might have stayed up there. You understand? What I'm saying?
Yeah, right.
But he come up and got me and brought me out.
Yeah.
Well, I might have been a whole different different thing.
Totally
different.
Right. I wonder why he wasn't able to bring my mother down here at that time. It just would have been too much.
Oh, yeah. Well, she was with Aunt Jane.
Aunt Jane wouldn't.
Well, Aunt Jane's a whole different
ball game.
Ball game.
Yeah.
And as much as Aunt Jane was an old maid school teacher.
Yeah. Right.
And how can you say it? And she was never married.
Yeah.
And everything had to be, in other words, there was no foolishness up there.
Yeah.
And,
right.
Laughing and giggling and all that
kind
of stuff.
Yeah.
So, really.
When Marion graduated from high school and got a job in New York with her uncle, she finally moved out of Aunt Jane's.
I think Marion was working at that point, right?
Working.
So she had some money to.
The one girlfriend, I think, had an aunt living in Belleville, so Marion got a room there.
Mm. Yeah,
and that's where she was. But Aunt Jane was such a They just, I don't know when they got together again, but I think she just sort of crossed her off the list. She felt like she deserted her.
Yeah.
And she wrote letters to Aunt Ella and told her how awful Marion had been by doing this. Mm. Anyway, I think Marion maybe thought that Uncle Irvin probably could have taken her.
Yeah.
And maybe we never discussed it, but since I was working at the time, maybe I could have worked something out for her to come out and we could live together or something. I didn't hardly know.
That's what you feel?
She never
expressed something to you?
No.
You think that she expected you to protect her?
I think she thought that I might have been able to. I don't know. Maybe I based it on a remark that she made one time. I don't know. I can't hang on to that. No, I was sort of under Ruth's as my cousin. I lived with Aunt Emma and Uncle Harry, but it was Ruth who made decisions in that house for most everybody.
Called the shots for you and
And I think it was up to her.
Oh, and that's where the outhouse was. Where that building, he built that building, where the outhouse sat in the corner.
Yeah.
And that's where you went out to but when I got here, they had finished the bathroom.
Oh, okay. So I was going to say that was.
Oh, you had a shower. It was very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you used to go back and forth, I imagine. I mean, you'd with Margaret and.
Oh yeah. And I mean, when Margaret was down there, and Ella, she was definitely afraid of thunder showers.
Oh.
And if she seen a black cloud come, she'd gather us all up and down the road we go to be with them.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Huh.
Oh yeah, we hightailed down that road.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's funny.
Oh, she was definitely afraid of lightning.
Really?
Well, you know, maybe that's what burnt the first house down.
Oh, maybe.
I never thought of that.
Maybe, yeah. So it was a pretty, you had a pretty good little household here. I mean, once, by the time you got back down here, you were 12 years old.
Yeah. I come back down at 41.
And Ken was already kind of on his own or something? Or if he was 10 years, he must have been around 22 or something? If you were 12, I don't know.
Yeah, I was born in 31, and 41 I come back, so I was 10 when I come back.
10.
And he was 10 years older than me.
So he would have been 20.
Yeah.
So he was probably pretty much out and working or something already.
Well, he'd already been working in Rockwell's as a toolmaker, see.
Oh.
So when it come to time for the war, he joined up with the Navy.
I see.
And he already had skill.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
He went to out to Chicago to that's where the Navy had their training school.
I see.
And he had a striped machinist.
I see. Uh-huh.
So you must have heard that, but he went to Pearl Harbor.
I didn't know
during the war.
Oh.
That's where he was stationed.
Oh.
But he worked on gun sites, bomb sites, anything that needed repairs.
Yeah.
Because he was a machinist.
Oh.
But it was all during the war. He was in Pearl Harbor.
I see.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. See?
Yeah, he was very fortunate.
Yeah.
But he had the skills.
Right.
Because he'd worked in Rockwell's for about 3 years.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
So vivacious, you know. That's
vivacious. Oh, yeah, we were.
Vivacious is the word that comes to mind.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
That was a different trip, and
And she had
38 between the house. There's Ruth.
There's Ruth, that's Bride.
Her wedding dress. Now there, see, she's
amazing.
quite slim down there.
Yeah, see, I knew there were some in here.
Yeah.
And here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's.
Some of these ones with the hair up. And
Yeah.
Oh, you want to hear something?
What?
Well, I'm not even going to tell you.
No.
Now you said.
No, yeah.
Well, I wore
Milagre
that.
Nelson.
I wore it that way all the time. I don't know how long.
Yeah.
And you know, Aunt Jane has always been sort of a
Commanding officer.
yeah. And Marion came down and said, "Well, Aunt Jane hopes you're not going to wear your hair like that." So I let it down, and I looked like Hiawatha with this hair hanging down on my way. She was the smartest.
Who?
Marion.
Smarter than you?
Yeah. She went up to live with Aunt Jane, the school teacher, and she didn't let her get away with anything.
Well,
but that doesn't mean
that
she's
doesn't
smarter.
mean she was inherently smarter.
No. That's a funny.
It was a different environment.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
I think you're both smart.
All right, there's Ken at 41.
Yeah, I don't know how you can say something like that as a matter of fact.
Well, forget I ever did.
Scratch that from the record.
Scratch that right off.
So you got attracted to him that day of the wedding,
Right.
and he towards you too.
Yeah. And what would happen is,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you want to hear something funny? Margaret and Harry lived up on an apartment, and I would come out on the train after work on Friday and stay with them, and they had no place for me to sleep. The three of us slept together in the same bed. Honest to God. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. Yep, that's right up there with amazing.
Where was Uncle Harry? In the middle?
Oh,
I can't believe that, but you can picture Margaret and I doing that, can't you?
Yep. Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Ken brought me, he come up and got me, say,
Yeah.
and brought me back, and I stayed and went up to Irving.
Yeah.
And that was 1941.
Yeah.
War was declared when I was up there.
Yeah. And you were, but you were too young. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah, I was only
10 years old.
10 years old
Right.
then.
Right.
But when I went up there, I was, say, 7,
Yeah.
In other words, Ken had just started to drive, but he wasn't in a position he could come and get me.
Right.
And but after he got old enough, and I come back, him and I slept in the same room.
Oh, is that right?
Until he went off to service.
Oh.
And then, of course, when he come back, he didn't stay here. He got married and moved up. He moved up the other end of town.
Yeah.
But,
the house where they always
lived. Yeah, then
lived.
he worked for Rockwell's, and then that's about. And then, of course, Marion, your mother, she worked for Uncle Lloyd.
Yeah.
Uncle Lloyd, he was up.
Yeah.
He owned a business.
Right.
He was in the dental supply business.
Right.
Had an office in New
He
York.
was he was the successful side of the family.
Yeah. And then you had poor old Aunt Ethel.
Yeah.
She had, Aunt Ethel had a whole flock of them.
Yeah.
And she took me in, but she didn't need any other. What I'm saying is that's the least thing she needed was another person.
I see. She was on the poor end of the family.
Yeah.
And she took you in anyhow.
And there was five of them living there in 3 rooms.
Yeah, amazing.
But the woman, but I don't want to. Uncle Lloyd didn't do that.
Yeah.
But Uncle Lloyd lived 3 blocks away from.
Oh, really?
Yeah, from where we lived in Clifton.
I see.
I could walk up and go over, and on Sundays I'd go up over to his house.
I see.
Where they were eating roast beef. And,
oh, really?
In the afternoon they had roast beef and everything.
Huh.
So I would go over there.
It was like the upstairs, downstairs. Yeah. They were the.
But it was only a block, 2 blocks away from.
That's something. Right. Well.
But I always remember going down there. They always went down at Christmas time, and it was quite a place on Fenner Avenue.
Yeah.
But they all had beat up junks, and and Ethel was great for going somewhere.
Ah.
When they remember the airplane that had the 3 tails. There was a passenger plane, airplane. It had 4 engines, and it was brand new. And
oh yeah.
But we all got in the car, and it was just come out, and they had it down at Newark Airport.
Yeah.
And here we are at Fort Churchmouth. We're down there getting line going through this airplane. I never forget it.
Is that right?
Yeah. But there we are. we do stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they get on the Hudson River Day Line.
Yeah.
For a quarter or whatever. And they take you up to West Point, the boat turned around, come back down, and we'd be hanging it down there Sunday. See, well, says, who's got $1 for gas? And who's got good tires? Well, them days, the tires, you blew out more tires.
That's right.
But Aunt Ethel was a much happier place.
Yeah. So you got, you have fond memories of that place.
Your mother really had a tough time.
Yeah. So, but it sounds like you made out pretty good there with the Philhowers, and it sounds like it was a pretty good setup here.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, a pretty good situation that you ended up in here with Uncle Irvin.
Well, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, no.
Well, Ken lived here with Uncle Irvin.
Right.
And Ken got me. Ken was here.
Right. But then once you came down here, you started going to Hopewell.
Oh yeah.
School.
Yeah, he brought me down in the summer.
Yeah.
And I started there.
Right.
And I think I started in 4th grade or 5th grade.
Right.
4th grade maybe.
Right.
But no, I was fortunate.
Yeah.
And another thing. Up there, Aunt Ethel had a cousin that lived up in New York State.
Yeah.
And they had a farm, and they had cows and the milk cows.
Yeah.
Well, they sent me up there one summer.
Oh.
And I don't know whether they thought maybe I might even stay up there.
Oh, really?
But it was an experience. On the farm, we milked the cows.
So you could have ended up.
I could have.
You could have ended up in the farm. You could have ended up in North Jersey.
That's why Ken come got me.
Right.
Yeah.
I see.
Really.
Yeah.
But I didn't. What did I know?
Right.
At that time.
Right. Edited. This is a great picture.
Oh, that was fun. The If girl. That's when worked at Rockwell's.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I don't know how I came to be over there, but we were fooling around.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if I wore my hair like that or whether I pulled it back like that for fun.
Yeah.
I'd already been running around.
Right.
Mad.
So did you walk up the tracks to go into town sometimes? Or well, you had a bike.
Yeah, I got back and forth. I got that with my first paycheck, you know.
I know, yeah.
And
I still can't believe you rode that.
From Sears. So it wasn't the outside of Trenton I started. It was from Sears in town.
It's unbelievable. That was a long ride.
And here I thought...
Up Route 31 or what?
Yeah, well, it certainly didn't have cars on it like it does today.
I know.
41, during the war, there probably was only half the number of cars.
Right.
And I rode back and forth to town any time of night.
Right. This is 1946 at the New York City Library.
Wow. Yeah, Mary and I went over there, I think. I remember those black...
46, was that when she was working there?
Probably, because I certainly would never get over there by myself.
Maybe you went to visit her or something.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
And made a day on the town type of thing.
Yeah.
Maybe she was showing you around.
Yeah. That's the only way I'd get there. Somebody had to take me, and I hung on tight.
You don't look like a country bumpkin.
There is the girls in the line that you saw a little bit ago.
Yes.
At the resort, right?
Oh, and here we are again.
Now, what did you do? Did you do anything wild at all, or what?
No, we just stayed at this...
tell you?
Yeah, by this point.
I don't know whether these girls were...
Because it's quite an attractive group there.
Just going off on a trip together is a pretty wild thing.
Well,
I guess that was a
In
pretty
fact-
big deal just to
in
go,
fact,
wasn't it?
I've often thought that the reason she asked me to go was because she thought Aunt Jane would let her go with me, where if she went with somebody she just worked with, no telling what they'd get into.
Right.
So you were the chaperone.
I might have been sort of a chaperone. Who
Yeah.
knows? Anyway, stayed at the Mountain Lake House.
Yeah.
This is
So, but, so
different lodge.
there wasn't like, dancing at night or...
I would have remembered that because I didn't dance.
Yeah.
All I did was play tennis.
There? On the trip?
Yeah, and
Or-
there was a fellow there that,
I would think you would have attracted the attention of
Yeah.
well, this guy took
Some
us to
guys.
Bushkill Falls. This guy took us to Bushkill Falls. I think there's a picture of one or the other of us just
Yeah.
standing with him while the other took a picture.
Yeah.
I think it might have been the year that I got married. We got married in sort of a hurry.
You did?
Yeah.
Why was that?
Well,
Certainly wasn't because Kate was on the way.
No, that took me
I often thought maybe somebody thought that. Well, that's Marion there.
There's one where she looks quite glamorous.
Yes.
You know the one I mean?
Yeah.
It's...
Margaret, let's see this. I want to see this.
Nail polish. I know I had nail polish once.
You were looking pretty stylish there. Didn't get up looking that way.
Must have been Ken's wedding, and it was. That's.
And Marion was really beautiful
Yes,
too.
she was.
Yeah.
Tom didn't ride all the way up to Newark for nothing. Belleville. She lived in Belleville then. There we are, all lined up.
There. Oh, there.
Now, wait, let me look at Ken. There's no date on that.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell whether he drove us up or Uncle Irving.
That looks like let me see that picture.
He surely is.
Yeah, look at you there, huh?
Yeah, boy.
Let me see.
I'm telling you.
Let me see.
You would have got my attention.
Anyway, it's all over. Yeah.
We have to get going.
Oh, what time is it?
6:03. We're picking him up at 6:15. Everything here takes like 3 minutes.
6:15?
It takes 1 minute to go here, and then it takes 2 more minutes to go get Uncle Donald.
Am I going to go looking like this? I guess I will.
It's the Lions Club, or the Elks Club, or whatever.
Yeah, who cares?
Who cares?
Right, we're going to eat. They really fix that up. Look at the moss on the front.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's the old homestead.
Yeah, the street has a lot of history, huh?
Yeah.